Hey, welcome to Impress the Boss. I'm Catherine.
I'm Laurel.
And I'm Valerie.
And we're here to help you stand out without working overtime. This week, we're going to be focusing on Bobson. If you remember Bobson, he was the Bob that we looked at in episode number 8. And if you're kind of curious about who these Bobs are and what they're all about, check out episode number 17. We give you the backstory on why we created these workplace characters, really to reflect the types of personalities that we ourselves are and that we encounter in the workplace too. So this week is Bobson. This is one of my favorite Bobs. It's a play on Danielson from Mr. Miyagi and Karate Kid. And I like this Bobson because he's the ninja. He's, stealth and silent and, he's calculating and he's very tactical and he knows how to fight and he's just very good at execution. So I like this Bob because he really impersonates that ninja flair to his vibe. So this Bob, though, can also face challenges. He might face not being able to speak up enough. He might face maybe getting too buried in the tactical where he's not looking at something strategic. And maybe he's so quiet that people might forget about him too, right? This Bob also has that fight or flight tendency, just as kind of like in the Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi was really teaching Danielson when to stay focused and fly or a flight, and then when to really stay focused and fight. And I think that's a very good thing to think about in the workplace and how that comes out. Maybe not so much around fighting, but well, it depends on who you are, but more about when you should really speak up and engage, and really when it's okay just to take a back seat and listen. So we'll hear from our workplace expert. You'll get to hear a little bit about his experiences, and then we'll talk about a takeaway for this week and an action item that we can implement in our own lives. So Laurel, who do we have on tap for this week?
Yes, this week's guest is Todd Bookspan, and Todd is probably the most successful serial entrepreneur that we know amongst us in our circle at this point. Todd's most current venture is called Win by Noon, and it is specifically focused around helping real estate agents and mortgage brokers to set their goals and to achieve those goals. And he's really seen a lot of success through that program and with his clients.
And that's really around productivity, right?
Yes.
Which is something that we all encounter. So even if you're not in real estate or in the mortgage business, I think his principles are very applicable to everyone who struggles with getting things done.
Absolutely. Yeah. True to his Bobson nature, Todd is somebody who will not brag about himself. So if you're ever in the Phoenix area and you invite him for a nice lunch, you would definitely be able to learn about what it looks like to be a successful entrepreneur and of thriving, growing businesses, and especially of multiple successful businesses, which is fairly uncommon for entrepreneurs. In addition to that, Todd is also a beautiful family man with a wife, Tara, who's a good friend of mine who I really enjoy and appreciate, and their 3 daughters. And
a lot of our interviewees have daughters. We noticed this as a trend.
There's a little bit of a trend, and that wasn't even intentional.
Yeah.
But
Good. We raise strong women.
Todd and Tara have actually worked together in business for a number of years. So there's some good things that we can learn from Todd and from Tara as far as what it looks like to be working with your spouse. So we're very excited to have Todd Bookspan as our guest today.
Well, welcome to the Impress the Boss show, Todd. We are so happy to have you with us today. Thank you.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure. I am super excited to be here.
Thank you. So we're featuring you as Bobson, like the Karate Kid character of Danielson. So a few questions that we have for you about Bobson. The first one would be, thinking about yourself as a Bobson, what is it that would be the biggest pitfall of a Bobson, or, the one thing that you would say for other Bobsons to avoid in the workplace?
I think it's always a challenge when you are not speaking up when you need to speak up. And so oftentimes I found early on, I just didn't have the confidence in myself to speak my voice. And what I found is that once I got more comfortable with that, then it really helped me, gain traction in my role Whereas when I was quiet and just sitting there, it was the frustration just built up, and that's not fun for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good for sure. So there is that like stealth mode of the Bobson, but maybe that it gets like too stealth that you fly under the radar too much. I like that.
Well, that's it, right? You don't want to be the wallflower. You actually want to be a contributor. And oftentimes, if you don't have that confidence, then that's a gap, right? That's going to hold you back from growing. And we're here to impress the boss. So let's,
That's right.
as my wife would say, you got to put yourself out there.
Yes, indeed. Good. We love your wife. She has a lot of wisdom to share too. So
She
good.
does. In fact, we should probably have her on here instead of me, but that's okay.
Maybe in addition to. Okay, so then on the flip side of that, what would you say is the biggest strength of a Bobson? Like other Bobsons should lean into this strength that they have.
For me, it was always being a quiet observer, because if you're the person who's not going to speak up, then as long as you're listening and you're truly paying attention, then what I did find was I like that word stealth that you guys use, because I found that oftentimes when I was there, I got that reputation for being the person who, although I wasn't in the conversation, every 10 seconds, like some people were, when I did speak up, they didn't believe it was stealth. They thought it was actually something that was important and worth listening to. And I had to become a better listener and better note taker, so that I could actually take the fact, if I wasn't going to speak up, that when I did open my mouth, I wanted to make sure that it was absolutely going to be important. And so therefore people didn't discount, I didn't have 27 ideas that people discounted. I only had 1, 2, or 3 that they said, all right, let's at least consider those. And that ended up becoming a strength.
That is so good. Yeah, I love that. The different perspectives that Bobsons can provide when they are willing to speak up and to lean into that's fantastic. Okay, so for our last question, what is the number one tip that you would give to other Bobsons in the workplace?
I love that question. And what I would say is it's an extension of what I previously talked about. I think it's getting comfortable giving feedback. It's being comfortable with your voice. And so my suggestion would be learn phrases like, are you open to feedback? Would it be okay if I ask you a question? And oftentimes what I find is when you've got that domineering voice, or you've got those other folks who think their ideas are way better than yours and they don't ever quiet down, that if you just ask permission to ask the question, to give them the feedback, then it's going to make it a whole lot easier for you. So that's would be my tip to get started to becoming a little less stealth and a little more involved.
I love that. Yeah, that's so good. And it's not in a aggressive way. So it fits with, that just methodical, disciplined Bobson style. So
And it's really rare that they say no.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that is very true. So good. Well, thank you so much, Todd. We appreciate you being our Bobson and spending the time with us today. Thank you.
Totally my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
Hands down. I just thoroughly love this interview with Todd. I mean, I just love Bobsons.
Mm-hmm.
Just what they just bring so much wisdom, don't you think?
Yes.
And when they
Yes.
speak, it's just so to the point, and you just can't just help but just to love them,
Mm-hmm.
And a takeaway that I've gotten from this interview from Todd today is he mentioned something that I think for those who are Bobsons, that you find yourself in at work or even in everyday normal conversation, and your personality is just drawn to just to listen and to as Todd said, just to observe and to listen. And usually it's other people who are throwing out ideas and having this great conversation of ideas. And with that Bobson personality, it's really hard to get your voice in. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to say what you're thinking. And I love what Todd said. He said you get to the place with this character being a Bobson where you have the confidence to go ahead and speak out. Mm-hmm. And so that is just the takeaway from this interview, is just like, if you are a Bobson, do not be as I don't want to say quote, but do not be as what Todd was mentioning. You just don't want to be a flower on the wall. Mm-hmm. You want to take initiative and to be able to voice your opinion. Mm-hmm. And the action that I would challenge a Bobson, and even for myself and for us here today, is, as he also mentioned, to ask other people if it's okay to give feedback. I just think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it's actually, one, allowing people to give you that time and that space to speak. And if you are a Bobson, if somebody gives you that time and availability to speak, what you say is just going to really be so enriching, because I just love the fact that Bobsons just bring so much of what's the word that I'm looking for?
Like wisdom and insight.
Wisdom and insight,
Yeah.
and really a Miyagi, as we say with our character.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is a lot of people are drawn to the very charismatic personalities. So a lot of the personalities we've talked about, the Bob Beyoncés or the Bob Ollets or the Bob Deans, that are very outspoken and have maybe a vivaciousness to their personality that the Bobsons might not have. But that doesn't mean that they aren't valuable or they don't have something to say. It's really the silent and stealth that you actually have to watch out for. So I'm not surprised Todd's the one that is like the most successful serial entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we don't want to overlook someone just because they aren't speaking up.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they don't have something that's very wise and valuable to say and contribute
Yeah.
And I know I said this again, but it's just, I just can't help but just think about, because we do live in such a competitive time, and I can see just when in different organizations and different groups, and when you're in a work group where everybody's just fighting to voice what they know or to voice what they think that is a great idea. And it's just, as a Bobson, how do you fight that? Because your personality is quiet as anyway. But just that action of saying and asking, hey, do you mind if I bring this up, or can I speak about this? And then having the confidence to do that, I just think it's just going to change the whole working environment when you have a Bobson. So if you are involved in a work group and you do not have a Bobson, I encourage you to get one.
Right. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
And if you're not a Bobson and you have one, then take a deep breath before you speak and maybe ask them their opinion and really try and cultivate their wisdom and bring it into the group, because you'll find very, very valuable nuggets in that process. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to Todd today. Please check him out on social. As Laurel mentioned, he has his recent Win by Noon venture around productivity. I think is very applicable to all of us. And so please check him out. And we look forward to hearing your stories and about who you are as a Bobson or the Bobsons you've encountered. So share those with us on social with #ImpressTheBoss. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on social for your daily standout tips, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget to use the #ImpressTheBoss and share your journey with us. And until next time, Bob's out.